Hello and welcome to NewsClick. Today we have with us Smita Gupta, who is an economist associated with Center for Adivasi Research and Development. She has been assisting All India Kisan Sabha on the issue of land acquisition and has been helping them in formulating their stance. First of all, starting with the thing, what was the need to bring an entire bill which is different from 2013 bill?
The reason they brought it is very simple. It is as payback to the corporates who supported them during the election campaign. The amount of money that was poured into the campaign, obviously this was payback. What does the bill do? If you look at what the amendments are, they are basically making acquisition much cheaper, much faster, and far less transparent and democratic than it was even in the 2013 Act, which also has its problems. It's not a perfect act.
When you talk about the certain amendments that have been made, there is an amendment where there is no need to take consent, and the social impact assessment clause has also been removed. Can you explain what are these two amendments that have been made?
Actually, the main changes that they have tried to bring are in those very features which were the most positive aspects of the 2013 Act. What we had was a Colonial Act which allowed forcible acquisition, and the Supreme Court had in many judgments actually pressed upon the central government to democratize the Act, to bring a better Act. So what did the government do? It actually went ahead and made amendments and brought an act which had social impact assessment. They brought an act where there would be a body of experts, there would be a body of social scientists who would come and they would assess the displacement, the environmental impact, the kind of social impact on, say, tribals, women and so on. So first of all, there would be a scientific and objective assessment of the impact of the project, of the public purpose. Does it actually serve a genuine public purpose or not? I mean, it's not enough for a government to say this is public purpose, right? The race course in Delhi is supposed to be public purpose, but what kind of public purpose is that? So a democratic assessment of public purpose, and then consent, that if you're acquiring somebody's land and if you're confident that you're serving a public purpose, then in that case, why should you not go and take their consent?
Basically plays with the democratic nature of the entire law that was there.
That's right. So now these basic pillars of that law, where consent would be taken, it wasn't going to be taken for everything, by the way. The 2013 Act also wanted consent only for public-private partnership and for purely private projects. Now, if consent was to be taken only for these, even there it has been diluted. Social impact assessment has been completely done away with. The definition of a corridor, an industrial corridor, has been extended by 2 kilometers on either side. So that's huge. It's a huge amount of land which is going to be taken over. Prosecution of guilty government servants who are not following due process, that has been made such a difficult act that you cannot hold them accountable ever, the way they have gone about doing these amendments. Therefore, if you want me to just say it in one sentence, everything democratic that had been brought in the 2013 Act has now been taken away by these ordinances and amendments.
The new bill also removes the provision to acquire only barren land. Now they can take for the agricultural land also. And also that there used to be a slab of 5 years that if the land is not utilized, you have to return it back. Now it has been removed.
Even in the 2013 Act, it didn't really say that you can only acquire barren land. It said to the extent possible. But even those lands, by the way, the dry lands, the lands which are not double crop, the unirrigated lands, the poorest people of India live on those lands. So even there, I feel there should have been much stricter provisions. But even the safeguards that the 2013 Act have been diluted, which means that food security of the country, I mean, quite apart from the livelihood security of the individual landowner who's going to lose his or her land, quite apart from that issue is the question of national self-sufficiency in food grain production. And that is going to be severely compromised by this. So that's one thing. As far as the return of land is concerned, there again there was a catch in the 2013 Act itself, which said that if it was unutilized for 5 years, it could go back to a land bank or to the farmer. Today, that has been completely diluted, and they have said that projects take a lot of time, and so it has to be 5 years or some reasonably specified period. So this again is a concession to those corporates who are sitting on hundreds and hundreds of acres of land which they have not used.
Yeah, when you talk about this 100 acres of land, a report came that only 40% of the land acquired for SEZs have been utilized by now. So do you think it also is a method to ensure that these corporate houses can gain a real estate business out of these land acquired?
Well, it's actually what we call speculative squatter. It's not just speculative squatting on through land acquisition, but you look at all the coal mines. People have taken coal mines, they have not done mining. People have taken land for SEZs, they have not built the SEZs. So the reason it is they're sitting on those lands will invariably become dearer. A lot of them are close to urban areas. So with the spread of urbanization, as you said, real estate development, these are going to become dearer. So without doing anything productive, without any employment generation, without a penny of investment, they're going to gain windfall profits. And that's the whole idea, to make money through speculative squatting.
They also say that this time the land acquisition which they are proposing, the bill which they are proposing, that the amount which will be paid for land acquired will be 4 times in the urban area and 6 times in the rural area. Where does it stand today? Because when we look at the entire market, the registration which is done fairly on the low cost than what is the original cost.
You see, it's like this. As far as costing is concerned, pricing is concerned, it's a very tricky issue. There are 3 issues in this, sub-issues rather. The first point is that now today I am an agriculturalist, I am farming. So my land is worth maybe £1 lakh an acre. Now they give me 6 lakhs for this and people expect me to be happy with that. But the moment some big real estate agent steps in and takes that 1 acre, that becomes worth 100 crores perhaps. Okay? Now that is the real value of the land when the land use changes. So I, as the original owner, what must I get? Must I get 6 lakhs or must I get a share in that 100 crores? So therefore the argument that we are giving 6 times or 8 times or even 20 times of the current market price is not correct. What they should be giving is a share in the enhanced value because of the changed land use. That's one issue. The second is they're linking it to average price of registered deeds, which is what you mentioned. And we all know the underreporting. We know the amount of underreporting to save on stamp duty. And that is the second problem. And the third cleverness which they're trying to show is that, there's a Supreme Court order which says that the highest exemplar, which means the highest value of land, which any farmer can come and say that, there was a transaction which was done at such and such price. That is what should determine the entire setting. But they're going away from that. They're saying average pricing. Now, the average is across underreported prices for registration. So you can imagine what the base is going to be.
When you look at the current BJP regime, the way it has been bringing the corporate houses in various agencies, be it FDI in insurance, in defense. What do you think is the way ahead for this government? Because they really don't have a majority in Rajya Sabha.
I really don't know what they are planning, because as far as the land bill is concerned, by all accounts, I went for a meeting the other day where members of the JPC said that there's an equal split within the Joint Parliamentary Committee itself between those who are pro and those who are against. At the same time, there are about 5 or 6 people who at the moment are neither here nor there. But the JPC, they may or may not be able to push their view through. As far as Parliament is concerned, Lok Sabha, they have the numbers. But what about Rajya Sabha? I think they're going to find it impossible to push the bill through there. And what stands for the Land Acquisition Act will stand for all the others. Which is why, if you notice, the bogey they're raising these days is about leaving it to the states. And that, in my view, of course, is going to be awful, because then there's going to be a whole lot of states which are going to go ahead and do what Rajasthan did, which is to even make a protest against land acquisition a crime, where a farmer can be arrested. So therefore, this is not the right way to go, and I think they must have the 2013 Act at the very minimum, because even that is not really what the farmers need or wanted.
You have been very much associated with the movements on the ground and All India Kisan Sabha. What's the position of All India Kisan Sabha on this? That, land acquisition for development is termed as a necessary thing. But how should it be justified, and what process should be followed to acquire the land?
All India Kisan Sabha, along with the Adivasi Adhikar Rashtra Manch and many other such organizations of farmers, have been talking, not from now, but for the past 30 or 40 years, strongly talking about a proper definition of public purpose. And the only grounds on which land acquisition is justified is public purpose. Now, at the moment, they have diluted the definition so much that they have brought in the corporate sector within the very definition of public purpose. And anything goes. So, if you look at the whole list that they have put out there, I can't think of actually any activity which doesn't qualify as public purpose. So, the first issue is that public purpose must be narrowly, rigidly and clearly defined. The second issue is that it's not enough to define it. Who will determine it? Who will decide whether it's public purpose or not? And here it has to be both the social impact assessment, it has to also be the Gram Sabha and the affected people giving consent, and finally it should be completely open to judicial scrutiny, and the courts should be allowed to listen to protests against it and to entertain all kinds of pleas against it. So public purpose is a very crucial issue, and the procedure and due process should be such that there should be no shortcuts. So at the moment you have urgency clause. The government can decide, I need this urgently. So you put in 100 democratic things in it and then you say in case of urgency none of this will apply. Now what is the point of having a law when the government can decide what constitutes urgency? Or for example, they have put a whole list of acts in the Schedule 4 which are beyond the scrutiny of the new Land Acquisition Act. And interestingly, everything that is there in Schedule 4 is land acquisition by the central government. So everything which the central government needs land for, national highways, railways, coal mining, there's a whole lot of...
there are a lot of bills coming on it.
Yes, yes. So therefore what you find is that they have created so many exceptions that even the limited safeguards in the 2013 Act get violated by having urgency clauses and having these exemptions. So the first point is there should be no exemptions, there should be no urgency clauses. The second point is we must have democratic scrutiny of public purpose, of due process and a proper participatory scrutiny of public purpose. I think without that, you cannot have an undemocratic act which deprives people of their only source of livelihood.
Thank you, Smita, for giving us your time, and as the things proceed, we'll be coming back to you on such issues. Thanks a lot. Thank you for watching NewsClick.